It's my delight on Plums today to have Cholo and Patrick, the co-founders of Moo Digital. We get into the corporate bond world and their exciting times working in the TradFi world. Let's get to it. Patrick, Cholo, welcome to Plums. It's great to see you guys. Welcome.
Thanks, Barry, for having us on. It's a pleasure to be number 3 in the lineup.
Yeah, Gamoo, number 3. Let's get it. Now, guys, you have a fantastic history of trading, around the world, but down there in Southeast Asia. And most of my education around what a trading floor is like comes from The Wolf of Wall Street, a fantastic film. But I just wanted to check with you guys, have you ever thrown a midget at a Velcro dartboard? Is that something you guys did or what?
Maybe not yet, but I will say a real story. And the reason I say not yet, Wolf of Wall Street, the whole background of that team, my old boss from New York was part of that group.
No.
In New York. So I have a lot of stories that are real life stories of that sort of lifestyle back in the day, not today. Can't exist today, but back in the day.
Yeah, you're kidding. I mean, I loved that film. I read the book while I was in Australia way back when. Just so captivating, the whole story. Jordan's ability to kind of say that whole narrative of what happened to him. Yeah, fantastic times. But yeah, I wonder, you mentioned obviously your boss who was part of that team, but have you guys had any crazy experiences on a trading floor or as part of the business that you're able to share on a recorded and published podcast?
Well, I mean, I'll go first, but I don't think I can share. But I would leave it at when we were both in banking at the same time here in Singapore. Our nickname was the Filipino Bash Brothers, throwback to the Mighty Ducks. I don't know how many of you still know that movie, but yeah, definitely got up to some mischief. But as I mentioned, I don't think we would want to disclose too much about what went on.
I can tell a real story. This really happened my first year. I was an intern actually at the time. Cholo and I both met when we were both at Merrill Lynch. So this was a long time ago. And this was, at the time, this was when the merger was still happening between Merrill Lynch and Bank of America. So yeah, there was a lot of tension on the floor culturally between these two teams. So I was an intern, get thrown in the middle of it. There was a day when there was a first-year analyst who came into the office. And in New York, they all wear the ties, particularly Ferragamo or Hermes ties. So there was an analyst that he had made some mistakes in the pitch book. And so the MD came back from the meeting like furious. He literally walked up to the analyst with a pair of scissors. He cut his tie and he said, "You don't deserve to wear this because you basically made so many mistakes in this book." The analyst, of course, makes a huge deal about it, is complaining about it to everyone on the floor, like for the whole day, right? Yeah. The MD comes back later. He had walked out of our office. He'd gone to the Hermes store. He had bought a new tie, and he said, "Stop complaining." And he threw it. Yeah. This is like real life stories of stuff that happened. This was like when I was an intern. This was like 15 years, like a long time ago. But real life stories from the floor.
It's amazing. I mean, ties are such a weird thing. Like, why do I have this thing around my neck? Because I wore a tie for years and years and years. And then one day I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, this is ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense. I mean, sometimes they look good. But yeah, basically now I've decided I'm only wearing a tie for funerals and royalty. That's it. Like, I'm not wearing them for prime ministers, not wearing them for work. I'm not doing it, nothing. I did wear one for my wedding. So yeah, I did wear one then. But yeah, I mean, to that story, it is incredibly frustrating when you're embarrassed by other people's work. Like, I mean, that MD was right to be furious because that guy made the mistakes. And I think, thinking about my life when that thing's happened, you're especially angry because you should have known to check that work and make sure there wasn't mistakes before going to a meeting. And so that, I get angry with myself as well as with the other person. But talking about interning for Merrill Lynch, when I was younger, I really wanted to be a stockbroker. I wanted to be a stock trader. I was like, yeah, this is, that's exactly what I want to do in my life. And it would have been terrible. Like, I would have been, chewed up and spat out and certain. And I think the only reason I really wanted to do it was the opportunity for wealth creation, right? Like, I just saw that, okay, cool, I could go down to London, I could be a stockbroker, I could do it. I want that life for myself. Not really fully understanding, the amount of hours. I mean, you guys know you're there virtually, all day, 18-hour days, if you leave, at 5, it's game over.
At 5, you mean 5 a.m., right?
Yeah, exactly.
Leave at 5 to get your third coffee of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, rough. But I did, at a young age, I did buy some stonks. Thinking back, my first stonk positions, I bought Greg's. Now, you guys won't have had the joy of Greg's. It was at that time like a regional bakery store in the UK. Mm-hmm. Like, it was like a north-south divide, this amazing company. And did really, really well. Incredibly well. Still a fantastic business. I ended up selling the shares, and then I bought Ryanair shares, which is this one of the first kind of budget airlines. And recently, my dad reminded me I sold them. And he asked me why. Like, why are you selling these Ryanair shares? And it's and he tells me that I told him, and I must have been like 16 at the time when I sold them, having known them for 4 or 5 years. He, because he had to do it for me, because because I was under 18, you have the accounts in his name, but it was like, Simon Berry, actual customer Ben Berry or whatever. Anyway, so. He had to sell them for me, and he asked me, why, and he tells me that I told him it's because I didn't trust the CEO. Like I said, I don't trust O'Leary anymore. And trust is, especially as a retail investor, is super important. I think, knowing what you guys do, you don't just trust people. There's so much work that goes into checking, verifying, tracking, following along, what these businesses are doing. And that's, obviously it was relevant for me in the doing stonks, but for you guys doing corporate bonds, corporate debt, making sure that these businesses are still thriving, able to service that debt, is super, super important.
Sorry, go ahead, finish.
Well, I was just going to say, like, when you're approaching, over the years, when you've been looking at corporate debt, corporate bond, what criteria do you look at to see, okay, this is worth doing?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe I can start, and then Cholo should definitely weigh in, as he's the expert in credit markets for a long time. But so one of the things that we learned really early on is, of course, the first layer is financial analysis. So when you are evaluating investments from a corporate perspective, there's a number of things in terms of the actual performance of the business, from a financial perspective. So what is the cash flow of this business? If you are lending them something, there are interest payments with which, they will be liable for. Do you have the ability to look at their historical performance and then have some perspective on what they will do in the next 5 to 10 years, basically if they have the ability for their cash flows to cover the interest. So from a credit investing perspective, that's a very basic form of, okay, from a numbers perspective, this makes sense. What I learned, it's relevant in every market. And I started my career in New York, but I've been in Asia for the better part of the last decade. What I learned, particularly being out here in Asia, is the personal element is just as important. You have to understand who the promoters are of the business, the shareholders, the operators of the business, because not everything, it may always be what it seems on paper. And when you are evaluating investments that you want to go into, the due diligence on the person is equally as important as the due diligence on the business. It's very easy to, depending on what regulatory environment you are, which country you are in, to navigate gray areas between like what's legal, like what legally you must have on paper versus what actually happens in operations. So one of the things that, Cholo and I spend basically all of our career as junior bankers is you you have to actually meet who these families are, spend time with them. You evaluate which ones are credible, worthy, folks that you put investments or dollars behind, versus those that talk a good game, but maybe you should be a little bit more wary, or you should require a lot more financial protection if you're going to make that investment. So particularly as we focus on Asia, like sourcing Asia Pacific investments now, I think both layers are super important, but the personal element is very hard, because it's very easy to get burned by fast connections that you made, and you haven't been around and sort of know who's who in the zoo.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. And do you think the alpha there that you're capturing by meeting them and understanding, does that get arbed out by the market with lower rates, or is it that other people haven't done the work?
Well, actually, I would say that it actually becomes more important. And I think this is where, when I first went into Web3 in like 2022, I thought it was really odd. I thought it was like kind of like bizarre. There was this market where people were throwing tens of billions of dollars into Terra Luna with just very desktop research around who Do Kwon was and what he was doing. Whereas that was just like, that's flies in the face of conventional wisdom about lending. Like, lending is not kind of like it. Lending is very different to kind of like stock punting or kind of like crypto punting, where I think the perception or the mindset going into stock punting or crypto punting is that I'm willing to lose 100% of my money, because I'm taking a gamble on this thing. It can go a moonshot, but I'm okay if it goes to zero. Whereas debt investing is really, I want to earn a solid yield and I don't want to lose my money. And that's why the credit important and the integrity of who you're lending to becomes paramount. And what we found in crypto is that not many people have really stood that test. I guess the name is too long. The list of names is too long to enumerate on this call. But that's really where I felt was very odd. The industry has grown since then, but I would say that it's especially important when yields are lower, because when yields are lower, the tide washes out. That you can't tell like who's over levered. You can't tell who's doing it properly. And then when it all inevitably snaps back, when it shifts, like what happened in 2022 to 2023, then you see essentially who wasn't trustworthy to begin with. So that's why I think it's even more important to be careful lending in a declining rate environment, because with rates near zero, everything looks good. But when rates are at 5-6%, not a lot of things pass the mustard.
Yeah, it's that saying, when the tide goes out, you see who's got swimwear on.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought you said we weren't going to talk about meat reveals on this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, dear, yeah. But it's funny you mentioned Terra Luna. I had some fun times with Luna. We probably shouldn't get into it, but I genuinely think that Do Kwon didn't do it maliciously. He lied about chai adoption, clearly, because it just wasn't there. But I don't know if he went out to defraud people entirely. Clearly it blew up, but I think a lot of the reason it blew up is because he was being attacked. Now, clearly, if it can't stand being attacked, then it doesn't deserve to be around. But yeah, it was a tough time for a lot of people. So many people got absolutely wrecked, and I know a bunch of people who got wrecked on it that never came back. It's like that's crypto for them. And one of the reasons I was so keen to work with you two and Mood Digital is you have brought a level of maturity to your approach to things. Just as you're going through there, Cholo, around the differences between the average person's approach to crypto and options trading or whatever, where capital preservation isn't key. They don't mind losing it all. That's it's that's part of the game for most people. Whereas, when you're taking, the corporate bond market in, in debt, you need the capital to survive, and then you're getting the yield through. And, for me personally, I benefit from having almost two sets of, mind when it comes to risk. I have my family business, which I run day to day. surviving, that living past my generation and giving it, to the next generation in a stronger position is super key. Capital preservation, surviving is super important. Whereas, with my magic internet money, because I have some stability here, I can go balls to the wall and go, all out and, take those risks that, you otherwise wouldn't reasonably do with, a high concentration, essentially leveraged bet on, the changing world order when it comes to tokenization and money. And you guys, you've got that approach to the corporate bonds, the actual kind of core business. But I guess at a personal level, you have taken some risks because you both had, fantastic careers in an amazing industry and an amazing part of the world. And you're like, hey, let's try and make something amazing, but there's a risk there, right? How did you get to the position where you were like, yeah, let's do this?
Yeah, I think I'll give my version of the story, and then Cholo definitely add, because we have slightly different takes on this. So I'd been dabbling in crypto since DeFi summer. So, what got me in was NFTs, DeFi summer, GameFi. I thought it was all interesting. I understood the technologies. I thought there were a lot of interesting things, but as you alluded to, I was also at a point in my career where by all banking standards, I was running a desk. So I had achieved what you're supposed to go out and do. You're supposed to run a desk, run a team. You become an originator. So your metric is, every year, how many millions of dollars are you bringing in fees for the bank? Like that's where I was, right? I went in-house to a multinational I did it for 4 years, a long time, basically doing the same thing. So I could have pushed the easy button. I could have enjoyed life. I had great work-life balance. I had a team of investment professionals under me, which all came from banks and private equities. They were awesome, right? So I could have just done that route. It was two things. One, I really saw that the thing that we're approaching, someone is going to do it. Either the banks are going to do it, some other DeFi founder is going to do it, but someone's going to do it. And with the background that Cholo and I have, with the history that Cholo and I have, at this point, we've known each other for over a decade. We first worked together in 2014 at Merrill. And we've been talking about doing something together for many years. At this point, I was like, if this is not the opportunity, then there is no opportunity. This is it, right? And it was the inflection point of regulations were starting to shift globally, where in Asia, it's been positive for a long time, actually, in Asia. And in Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, all these markets have been positive for a long time. But you started to see it turning in the West, in the US, in Europe with MiCA regulations. You started to see it. So it was inevitable, but it's still in the early stages. So what we really thought was, this is what we can bring to the on-chain economy. Like, we have the ability to help source and bring these deals, which is basically we grew our career sourcing this stuff, but now we're delivering it to the on-chain economy, not just through our old school Insti partners. So, but to your point, it was, I still feel the pain now. I feel the struggle. It's not easy to go for a long time not paying yourself a salary, no matter how long you've been working, right? Like the entrepreneurial struggle is real. But it also lights that fire under you where if you're not shipping, then you're only hurting yourself. So you must deliver, right? So, I think that's also the fun part of it, because I feel like, I'm running again. I feel like I'm engaged again. It's a mission, and, it's a company that both of us, feel very strongly about. So we're having fun, and we're having fun doing it in the ecosystem that we're in.
And the opportunities there, you mentioned Terra Luna, for Anchor, where is the yield coming from? And it blows up. Whereas you guys are building a product where it's like, well, here, I can point to it. This is exactly where it is. Cholo, what was it like for you kind of switching from, this, high flying career to building and becoming a founder?
Yeah, I made my jump when it was kind of like the prior cycle. So my prior venture was actually a play to earn gaming guild. Like that was fun. I think I still have very fond memories of that time. And the reason was really around, as Patrick mentioned, I think the real phase shift for me was during COVID. When a lot of our time before COVID was essentially getting in a plane, packing a suitcase, and being out on the road 4 weeks in a month, which is basically just home for weekends. That was kind of like, it's kind of like that saying that you don't know you're dry, you don't know you're in the pot until it's boiling kind of thing. Where kind of like COVID was that very stark difference. Like actually, there is an opportunity. There's this whole industry that's more exciting than banking. There's lots of cool stuff getting built, and it doesn't involve you kind of like mortgaging your life to always be on the road 24/7 because of some archaic way by which this industry is constructed. And even now, you're seeing that even in the old banking, the model is shifting where there's less travel, more intentional coverage. And I think crypto had it like right much earlier on. So and the dynamism and the energy of crypto is one that you don't really turn away from. Like after you've been red pilled and built in this space, you kind of want to keep building. And that's what happened to me after my initial venture. We had to sunset that. Really wanted to keep building in the space, and we're fortunate that now RWA and institutional kind of like that face of crypto is more advanced now, and we can actually have a shot at building what we're building, but in a essentially we're reinventing banking but for crypto. So it's interesting. It's borrows from our past, but it's kind of leaving all the clunky stuff behind and really building something for natively for DeFi.
Yeah, reinventing banking for crypto. Nice. Cholo, something you said there that I hope you don't mind me asking. What is it about Filipinos that absolutely love play to earn? Like, what is that? Like, it's just the Philippines just went nuts for it. Like, and I like it, but they took it to like 110. They turned it up to 11.
If I had to guess, and I think this is where like it's a confluence of this like very many things that Filipinos really love. One, we really love cultural movements. So if something's happening, we just want to get involved. We just want to be part of it, whether it's like K-pop, whether it's like Mobile Legends. We think that something's blowing up. We just want to be involved in it. So there's the huge tribalism and like friend refer friend kind of model in the Philippines. So when actually started popping up, people said, "Oh, I want to play that too." And it also combines the other two things that we also really love, which is gaming. We're gaming and online life. We're very much like at some point we were the biggest Facebook users in the world, kind of thing, from time spent online. So we love just being online all the time. And of course, gambling. Like Filipinos are massive gamblers. There's like at least 7 casinos in Manila itself. And so just put the crypto, gambling, gaming, and like a cultural aspect of it. Then it's just like, how can you say no?
Yeah, the perfect mix. Now, you mentioned Singapore there. I want to come back to Singapore. But before we do, we have a short message from Chog. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Dear me.
That was unexpected.
An unexpected twist.
Stay in school, Chog.
Yeah, stay in school.
Don't come to Singapore.
Yeah. I don't know.
Those dance moves are hot, though.
Yeah. Where and how did Ray J decide that Chog should do it? I mean, Chog has this weird kind of origin story where Ray J was trying to get AI to draw Molendak, and it created this weird looking thing, and he was like, okay, cool, this is a new one. This is Chog, my son. But now you guys have your own Mon Animal, right? You got Mullish, and you've been building this great lore around Mullish. There's loads of cool stuff with it. But I want to ask you guys, apart from Mullish, who is your favorite Mon Animal? Have you got a favorite one that you guys like other than Mullish?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I started as a Molendak fan just because it was like my entry, and Mon had like hands out like Molendaks all the time, so it became my favorite. Chog is actually my favorite now. He reminds me of Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't know if that's why, but Chog. I currently play as Chog in all the games on Mana that you can interact as a Monimal.
Nice, Cholo.
I mean, I like Molendak, but yeah, I think Molendak's kind of safe. He's cute. My kids like Molendak, but I personally like Salmonad. Yeah. Because Salmonad is like, I'm a big SpongeBob SquarePants fan, and he's like, that guy just like lives in Bikini Bottom for sure.
Yeah, I love. I'm a big fan of Salmonad and Chog, and I recently rediscovered. I don't think I noticed at the time, Ray J managed from voice calls to rip my voice and make like an AI version. And there's a video of Salmanad where I'm his financial advisor telling him that he's broke. It's so good.
How did Salman take that news?
Yeah, not very well. He goes to his like safe place in his mind and he's dreaming about being happy. But yeah,
It's like us during a bear market.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, so back to Singapore though. Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, drugs. Singapore's just an amazing place. I went when I was like 18, 19, just for 2 weeks, and it blew me away as a place. I mean, is it still, on the up and up? Is it still, from everything I can see, it is. But obviously, there's more global competition now from other city-states. So, yeah, do you think it's still on the kind of ascension?
It's actually an interesting question because Cholo and I talk about this a lot, and I'm at the point where it's almost 10 years that I've been here in Singapore. Every country sort of goes through different arcs, but now, of course, because we have View Digital as a business, what we always think about is like what's best, for our company in building this business. It is true that Singapore still wants to be a leader in digital assets. It's still true that for protocols like us, it gives us a safe harbor to build, but there's a lot of competition nowadays, whether you're talking about Hong Kong, which is they're trying to poach projects away from Singapore, and they're doing it with a lot of government support and a lot of financial institution support. Dubai is another market which really is making a strong push. We haven't spent as much time in that market as opposed to the two, but I would say Singapore is a very comfortable place, to come back to after your weeks of traveling through the Philippines and Indonesia and Thailand, and have a sense of order and safety. But in terms of building as a crypto builder, I think there's actually a lot of attractive alternatives nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, my what I would add is I think it's the perspective is very different if you're like an investor, if you're an exchange, if you're a builder. Like if you're an exchange and like an investor, definitely in Singapore, like where a lot of regulatory clarity, a lot of kind of like support from the government, and just a lot of like essential infrastructure is here. Like you have like professional services, lawyers, auditors, funds. It's just a city that's kind of used to dealing with financial services. But yeah. I would say as a builder, hot take, I think that Singapore is a very boring place to build in. I think there's more interesting problem statements, use cases that you can build even around Southeast Asia, just because of the depth and the scale of those economies. There's more problems to solve, right? Like as a builder, you're always looking for that one problem no one's cracked. And if you crack it, then you can kind of like hit that hockey stick growth. Unfortunately, Singapore, because it's been done too well, there's not many problems left. So if you really want to attack a big problem statement, there's other opportunities out there.
Yeah, when I've been thinking about Singapore and other global destinations, my problem is the kind of entry price. Like it's super expensive. If you want to get a house, you want to get a car, you want to do anything, it's it's not easy. It's literally a third of the price in Dubai, and there's similar kind of upside potential there. And as you say, Hong Kong, it's had its ups and downs, but is continues to grow. Just funny story. You mentioned earlier about not doing meat reveals, but one of my favorite like kind of mementos from visiting Singapore. There's I think it's a jewelry shop on Orchard Road called House of Hung. And when I was there with my friend, I got him to like stand on one side of the road so we could get the sign in, and I'm just stood there with like holding my like crotch, like making it as big as possible. And I had that as like my Facebook profile for years, just me at the House of Hung. Yeah.
You're lucky you didn't get picked up by the cops in the 2 minutes that you took that photo.
Yeah. I was worried about the police and stuff. Like we were told, oh, you can't have chewing gum, but then the shops were selling chewing gum. I'm like, okay, well maybe I can. We had a fantastic time. We were staying with the godparents of my friend, and he worked insurance. Singapore's basically finance insurance and a few other smaller things, but there's a lot of insurance, a lot of finance, and he was doing well for himself. And they were a British family, moved out there, and he was a big fan of TVRs. I don't know if you're familiar with TVRs, the cars. They're these kind of British sports cars. I think for global audiences, it was made famous in the film Swordfish, where John Travolta's character goes out the sunroof with 2 guns while driving this TVR through the street. Sick. Anyway, this guy was a big fan of TVRs, and he told his wife that he only had one, and but he lied. Anyway, on the way to the airport when we were leaving, we were, come on, take us to the TVR, and he took us to the TVR, and his wife was with us, and so he showed us the TVR in this yard, but there were loads of other TVRs like underneath like tarpaulins and stuff, and his wife, I could see her, she was clocking it, looking, and who else is gonna have TVRs in the same yard as him? And so you could see her absolutely raging, but she couldn't beat him up in front of us, so we just got taken to the airport and dropped off, and we're like, oh man, Debbie is just gonna absolutely kill him. Now we're on the plane. But yeah, good times indeed.
You got some highbrow friends you should introduce us to.
Well, he's retired now. Great guy. He's moved back over here. Yeah, he lives on the other side of the lake that's behind me. But yeah, good times indeed. Now, Charlie, when we were talking about Salmonad before, you mentioned, going to his happy place is kind of like when there's a bear market in crypto. One thing I've wondered about with Moo Digital is whether it will significantly outperform, given, the nature of the RWA that it's involved with in a bear market. Do you guys think there'll be these kind of periods of inflows and expansion in different market conditions?
Yeah, I mean, we always look at our protocol as more like a all-weather product, in the sense that it really is there as a ballast. It's like something that you use as a diversification in your portfolio. Now, a lot of the stuff that we bring on chain is not new. A lot of stuff is most people can access, but we are building for a future where I would think that convergence of DeFi and TradFi is ongoing, and it's going to accelerate in the coming years. And you're going to come to a point where people want to have both their speculative stuff, which is crypto tokenized stocks, as well as their safe haven stuff, which is safe high yield deposits, principal protected assets, on the same distribution rails, on the same financial rails. And right now with crypto, it's getting there, but it's not quite there. We want to be able to enable a future where if it's in a bear market, you don't have to off-ramp all your stables and then put them into a brokerage account and then buy bonds and deal with the friction costs and the onboarding that's required. We want to kind of meet the customer where they are. We want to bring all these assets on chain so that, yes, when it's a bear market, when even bellwethers like Athena are returning 3 to 4%, as you saw in the last couple of months, you can rotate in something that's giving you 8 to 10% without having to deal with multiple accounts. Just do it in the same wallet, kind of shift it. Maybe some bridging is involved, but you're still within crypto. Yeah. And the beauty of that is that you can exit that and go back into your highly leveraged Dogecoin or meme coin position without also having to off-ramp and wait 5-7 banking days to do the same. So I think that's a big unlock initially. But I think moving forward, what a bigger unlock would be is actually you can sprinkle this same asset class into what the best of DeFi, like leverage looping, earning as providing more liquidity on automated market makers while using it as collateral on perps, dexes. Yeah. I think once it's composable and DeFi enabled, essentially other people will build stuff that you haven't really thought of, and that's also the other beauty of crypto. Even development and building is very decentralized. So we're actually quite excited to see what people build on top of Mubond versus stuff that we just build ourselves.
Yeah, it's a Lego, right? I mean, that's the beauty of DeFi altogether, and it's probably what you spotted when you came in 2020. Seeing that kind of that ability to take a single product and build things, above it, and that other people, as you point out, do that on top. And as you say, the kind of ability to get into kind of corporate debt markets in Southeast Asia may have been open to me. I'd have to sell a bunch of crypto, transfer it somewhere, get a trading account, go through KYC, AML, and maybe even have a local bank account there. You know, there's all those kind of problems. Whereas, you know, you have this, opportunity where people just go, instead of just stabling up, they're stabling up and putting it in a safe place where they can get a fantastic return in the meantime, to weather any storm that comes along. And even holding capital ready for the next play, you know, you can put it in and build it up in a super liquid way.
Exactly, and that's sort of, you know, the other piece of this too, as you mentioned, when people want to stable up, what do? They put it literally in stable coins, and there's which gets you zero yield. I mean, there's starting to be more yield bearing stable coins, which are typically backed by U.S. Treasuries, which in today's markets they give you 4%. What we're trying to offer is, it's okay. Like, you should, if you want to put something in a stable investment, that's fine, but get 10%, don't get 4%. And you know, one of the things too that we see in DeFi is a lot of the leverage looping that happens. The base layer is not a secure layer. It's built on whether there are things like tokens emissions, points programs, or other things, which it's a highly volatile asset class. I wouldn't even call it an asset class, just a highly volatile block of value to begin with. You need the base layer. You can't build a castle on a house of cards. The base layer foundation has to be strong. And what we feel is really lacking in DeFi today is alternatives for that base layer, which are above just funding rates, you know, on a delta neutral trade, which are just above a US Treasury, which is not attractive today at a 4% yield. So we think that a lot of this inventory that we are bringing to market is of a similar safety, backed by other assets, which people don't traditionally look at, but also just get you a much more attractive base yield.
Yeah, fantastic, guys. We've come to the end. Thank you very much for coming. I'm incredibly mullish on you guys, what you're building. You know, as we've just gone over in the last few minutes, you know, you're creating something that needs to happen on chain, that there's a clear use case for, that people want, people need, has multiple avenues for people to get in and earn more. And you two at the top, you know, incredibly mature, you know, apart from the meat conversations, but mature in your knowledge of how to run this kind of business. And delighted to spend some time with you chatting today. Thanks very much for coming on.
No, thanks for having us. It's been fun. Come on, add to the whole plums community.
Our pleasure. Come on, Ed.
Cheers.
The information and discussion provided here is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. Berry is not licensed to provide investment advice and does not offer such. Berry typically holds positions in the project and protocols he discusses and discloses that to you here. Opinions expressed by guests are theirs alone and do not necessarily reflect the views of Berry, Plums, or their affiliates. As with all things, and especially financial matters, please do your own research and consult with professionals where relevant.